You can celebrate Earth Day in book form. On the playlist this week, a burlesque story takes the stage in Hibbing and classical Spanish music right here in the studio. There's more for your playlist coming right up.
Funding for the playlist is provided by the citizens of Minnesota through the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Great music and complex characters make Gypsy one of the greatest American theater productions ever. Actors and musicians from the Hibbing area are staging it starting tonight at the Hibbing Community College. Now, colorful and creative attire is a big part of the show, and a little glamour is required. Take a look. That's Gypsy. With 32 people in the cast, the volunteer costumers have had their hands full. Now, dozens of community volunteers support the production, including the crew and set builders and lots more. Rehearsals for this show started back in January. Now, in her first season as director, Patty Lane plans to wow the audience with a spectacular show. 2 weeks ago, she gave us a personal tour of the production in progress.
All props, all set pieces. Thank you, everyone. This is one of the shows within the show, and this is a farm scene with a big part of the company in the scene, and it's got all the bells and whistles, and it's patriotic because nothing is too much for Rose to put on stage, so it's great. Mama Rose has two daughters. One is beautiful, blonde, and talented, and the other one, she's dressed as a boy and made her the background. Over time, they grow up, and this is the changeover for that. Places. 1, 2, ready, and. It's basically an ugly duckling to a swan story as well. So people, I think, will really love it for that reason, too. Can you bring in Grand Singer's Palace Theater?
Grand Singer's coming in.
Thank you. Because of the fly space, we're bringing in many different locations, going from the early 1920s to the mid-1930s. We have a pretty great shop, and we have some really wonderful people who have come and volunteered, and so we're really excited about that too. Past, I'd like to welcome the orchestra to our rehearsal. Yay! Woo! We have a 7-piece orchestra from Hibbing and the surrounding community. We're so lucky to have Chet Johnson as our orchestra conductor and Pete Pellenin is our vocal director. Very lucky to have them. It's been a long time since HCC has had a 7-piece orchestra for a musical, so we're excited about that. I don't want to give too much away, but Louise, her second daughter, grows up to be Gypsy Rose Lee, one of the most famous burlesque stars that's ever lived. She was of such class and grace, known for only removing one glove. Her mom always said, make them think you're going to give it to them and then don't. So she was known for that. She wore beautiful gowns and furs and beautiful jewelry, and she basically classed herself right out of burlesque. It has been in front of the public eye for over 30 years. It has great tunes like Everything's Coming Up Roses and You Gotta Have a Gimmick and Together Wherever We Go. So it'll make people sing and cry and laugh and feel the journey.
That's a pretty ambitious production. I think it's going to be great. Now, our musical guests tonight play a unique instrument. They're called Vihuelas. It hails from 16th century Spain, and it's a precursor to the modern guitar. Please welcome Edward Martin and Tyler Kaiser. Fantastic. I want to clap. That's very cool. I didn't want to interrupt that last note because it sounds just fantastic. Thank you so much. So tell me about these instruments. They almost sound like harpsichords. They have a real different, very Baroque feeling.
Well, these were made in Duluth by a master builder and good friend of ours, Dan Larson. And Tyler, if you could show the back of the instrument too. See, they're interesting. They're fluted and vaulted in the back as well. And these are made after an exact model of an instrument. Actually, the original one is exactly his size, but what the builder did is he made a set of exact matching set of 4 of them. Tyler's is in F. There's another one in G, one in B flat, and this one is in a high C. Now, the 2 other instruments will be in the concert that we're having coming up in 2 nights. So there'll be a quartet on a matching set of the Vihuela. And the Vihuela replaced the lute in Renaissance Spain. And we don't know exactly why. We think it was probably because of the Spanish Inquisition, in which it was perhaps politically incorrect to do things that were Arabic or Jewish, and the lute having come from the Arabic lands. So the Spanish people made their own instrument.
So what is it about these instruments that give it the different sound? I mean, is it the size of the box and the shape of the back? Is it the strings and how they're strung?
It's all
what
those
makes
things.
it different?
It's all those things. The thickness of the soundboard, how thick or thin they make the instrument. This one is different from others. Most members of the lute family have a thinner soundboard and thicker in the back here, but this actually has thicker here and thinner here. So it's the proportions and how they make it, and that's why master builders know how to do these things. And also I could add that the strings, all the strings are made out of gut. And they're actually manufactured here in Duluth as well by Dan Larson. So,
I think that's amazing that that gentleman lives in our own city. I think that's fantastic. So the music itself, I mean, instruments from the time didn't necessarily survive, but the music did.
Yes.
So tell me about the composition that you just played.
Well, this is, there are 7 books that are survived for Vihuela, and the first of the surviving books was called El Maestro, and it was written by Luis Milan, and the year of this publication was 1536. And this piece was a stately dance of Havana, but as you might have heard, after the simple part, Tyler had composed some variations on it. They're called a glosa in Spanish music, and Tyler, being a composer himself, arranged this very beautifully for 2 vihuelas.
Yeah, originally it's for a solo vihuela, and in the concert actually it'll be for all 4 of us. And when we heard about the opportunity to play here, I thought, well, hey, why not? So this is really 4 parts crammed into 2.
It's a fantastic instrument, though. And how did you get hooked on this music and this instrument? And, I mean, you play the guitar as well, so.
Yeah. Well, in playing the guitar, I found a lot of music was transcribed, and I thought, well, why not play it on the thing it came from? So I did as much research as I could and taught myself how to read this kind of music. And finally got one.
Wow. They're beautiful instruments. And when do we get to hear more? When is this concert?
Saturday night, the 24th, 7:30 p.m. at the College of St. Scholastica. Not in the Mitchell Hall, but this will be in the 3rd floor music hall in the Tower building.
Okay. Well, what a treat to bring this music to us. So thank you both for sharing it with us.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's just a pleasure to be able to share this music. And you know what? Before the show ends, we'll get to hear a little bit more. So we want to thank both of these gentlemen for coming to share their music, and we'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Mullins, and we are at Northern Grounds on North Central Avenue in Ely, Minnesota. This month we have artwork by Jeannie Berkwin, an Ely local artist. A bunch of watercolors in here right now. People love seeing the art back in here now because we used to have an art gallery upstairs, and the art has been gone for a while, and for the art show we started putting back art for it, and it just continued on because people love seeing it back. I love seeing the color all the time now.
Jeannie Berkwin's show at the Northern Grounds will be up through the end of the month at least. Now, where does a Northern poet find inspiration? Kathleen McQuillan may give you some idea. She lives and works between Ely and Virginia and takes notes along the way. This spring, she was the featured guest at the Lyrics Center for the Arts Words and Lyrics event in Virginia, and she graciously shared the evening with us.
In my daily life, I travel, I drive around a lot, I'm surrounded by natural beauty. So lots of things are happening across the landscape that connect with feelings, things I've heard, a connection that I make. And then I'll pull over and, jot something down. The program tonight, I picked the theme of altered landscapes, and I thought about that a lot, and I think, there's so many dimensions to what and where are landscapes. The backs of buildings are burdened and bent, harboring stories and unanswered questions. Writing for myself is very different than writing for other people. Reciting it changes how it feels, how it comes across, what makes sense, what sounds good. You hear the music of it. Green glass, blue glass, and no glass, the mosaic of dilapidated warehouse windows. Pigeons balance on high wires, cooing to baggy kids with spray cans. The invisibles, painting their stories of abandonment and belonging with courage and intent. It's hard for me to think of myself as a poet. Philosophically, there's a part of me that absolutely gets that every person is an artist and every person is a writer. And it's just making time. It's giving ourselves permission. It's being willing to experiment and seek out what is your means of expressing yourself.
Mother watched as spruce began to sprout here and there in the hayfield.
I love listening to other people read their work. It's just such a treat.
For a while, Uncle Edwin and I stood listening to the ducks. Then I broached the subject. "Spruce starting to come up over there," I said, pointing. "Yeah," he said thoughtfully. "It's just the natural evolution of the landscape."
Right now, I write when I'm moved to write. And that happens fairly frequently because I think if you are a creative person, there's a need, there's a pressure inside to have that flow out of you. So this poem is called A New Foundation. For the first time in years, this house has not moved. The rocks upon which it sits have absorbed the pushing and pulling away of clay, allowing us to live in relative stability. The doors close tightly now. The cracks in the walls have all but disappeared, finally resting comfortably upon themselves. Water spilled no longer races north or eastward. After years of clamoring for one another, we've reached an equilibrium, lying side by side, neither rolling against our will this way or that.
Well, joining us now to celebrate Literature and Earth Day are Nancy Eaton and Carla Powers from the Duluth Public Library. Thank you for coming, ladies.
You're welcome.
Tell us about this One Book, One Community project. And I'm sad that I'm coming in late, but it's not too late. What should I be reading?
Well, you should be reading Animal Vegetable Miracle by Barbara Kingsolver and Seed Folks by Paul Fleischman. And they're wonderful books about the benefits of community gardening and growing your own food, which seems to be particularly relevant right now.
What kind of response have you had from people? I know the library has several copies. When I last checked, they were all checked out.
It's been tremendous. There have been a number of book discussions going on around the area, lots of programs. It's co-sponsored by the Whole Foods Co-op in addition to the Duluth Library Foundation. So we've gotten some real great support from Whole Foods, and there's been a lot of energy around this topic.
Fantastic. So the goal of One Book, One Community, Give me a sense of, that you've done this for a number of years. This isn't your first book.
This is the 9th project, and the goal is to bring everybody in the community together by encouraging them to read and discuss the same book. People can disagree, but at least it's fostering a sense of community and opening a discussion back and forth.
And when I look at where the events were already and where there are still coming up, it's not just a Duluth thing. It seems to bridge over to Superior, up to Virginia. Cloquet is doing things.
We've had people from all over the region being a part of the group. Sometimes in being a part of the committee and planning the programs, and sometimes just taking the opportunity to piggyback onto our project, and we're happy to give them a little publicity as well.
Now, have you been surprised at anything that have, kind of some of the discussions, or learned anything, picked up any tricks?
The thing that really sticks in my mind is that there are a lot of easy steps that people can take to live a little more lightly on the planet, to support local farmers, to maybe grow a little of your own food, or seek out local sources of it. I think there's something that all of us can do to kind of improve that way, and a lot of times it's not that hard.
And both of these books kind of hint at that. Barbara Kingsolver spent a year with her family eating locally. Is that the general?
Right.
Yeah,
and she was very committed. So in her case, she took it to kind of an extreme level, and I'm sure it did take more work than it would for someone who maybe wants to eat one local meal a week. But there are a lot of benefits to it, and community is one of them, and these books touch on that.
And the second book, tell me a little bit about the Seed People book.
Seed Folks is a book written for children, and it is a collection of stories about people who live in an apartment house in an inner city. And these people who had been strangers come together by working a piece of ground, creating a community garden, and they form a family.
In Duluth, it would be the family forming around keeping the deer out of your garden. I think it would be the more collective way to do it. Now, there are some events still coming up. What's still happening out there?
We have a program on Saturday. This is at the Duluth Public Library at 1:30. There's a program that Shannon from the Whole Foods Co-op is going to present on what the locavore movement is. What does local mean in the Twin Ports? And next week we have a program on
herring and harp. That sounds awfully fun.
It's poetry and music on the themes that are presented in Animal Vegetable Miracle. And it also is celebrating National Poetry Month, which is in April. And then the bridge for that is that we are very fortunate to have Minnesota's Poet Laureate Robert Bly speaking in Duluth on Tuesday, May 4th at 7 at Weber on UMD campus.
That's cool. And that takes a ton of organization, but it really, thank you for the leadership from the library and getting us together to read a book like this. And thanks for coming over. Past your bedtime, not really, not really, come over, stay up late. So thank you very much. Now, for giving us this big kind of, I look at it as a big book club and giving us all a chance to build a sustainable community together. Now, finally, Treasure Island. If you're a book sort, you probably know the story. The theater version is currently on stage at the Grand Marais Playhouse.
Play has been really, really fun. We've gotten to do a lot of stuff that I haven't done before. We've done a lot of fight training. All the pirate stuff is just awesome. Look at these costumes. It's really, really great work by all the costume designers, great volunteers. It's been really, really fun.
Well, because of our small set, we have to have a very versatile stage, and the pieces on the set stay on the set. They just get rearranged into different configurations to show a different place, and then the lights help. And the kids have given me about 3 or 4 weekends, along with 2 hours a night, 5 nights a week for 7-8 weeks.
It was really challenging. We put hours into especially the fight scenes, but it made the play, it really added a lot to the play.
This was just a great experience that I really learned from, because this was a very challenging role. All the lines and footwork for the fights, but it was really a great experience, yeah.
Talk is free and liberty is generous.
So clever folk tales almost demand good folk music. The Mountain Dulcimer provides a pretty good soundtrack. Wendy Grethen stopped by to fill us in on Dulcimer Day, and now it's in its 9th year here in Duluth.
I'm Wendy Grethen, and I play the mountain dulcimer as well as the hammer dulcimer. I have with me today a mountain dulcimer, and it's a traditional American folk instrument. It started in the Appalachian Mountains about a couple hundred years ago, and it basically is a 3-string wood instrument. And for the type of music, people would sit out on their porches. The first Saturday in May, which this year is May 1st, is Dulcimer Day in Duluth, Folk Music Festival at the Coppertop Church. And this is the 9th year for the fair, and it has 20 different workshops that's for beginner players, but then also people who do know the basics and want to expand their skills. The event can be for people who just want to listen and come and attend the workshops. The word dulcimer itself means sweet, and sweet music or sweet melody. And I think the simple, sweet, but then room for creativity. I'm also a fan of keeping traditions alive, and I think folk music and traditional folk music should continue on.
For more information on the things we mention on the playlist, you can check out our website at theplaylistonline.org. You can also watch episodes, get a peek at the playlist gallery, and send in your suggestions for future features. Now, we want to thank Jeff at Lizard's Art Gallery in Duluth for providing some beautiful artwork for us tonight. Beautiful pieces, Jeff, thanks. And we'll leave you with another tune from Ed Martin and his Vihuela. The full concert is Saturday at the College of St. Scholastica. Have a great weekend and go out and support the arts.
Funding for the playlist is provided by the citizens of Minnesota through the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and by viewers like you.